warm welcome to our viewers here in Nigeria and our international audience. Thanks for joining us on The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Here's what's coming up within the hour. Mexico elects first female president as Claudia Sheinbaum beats rival Xochitl Galvez by a landslide in Sunday's poll. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa calls for unity as the African National Congress loses majority in crucial elections. Plus, the death toll from heat-related incident rises to more than 50 in India. There appears to be a party in Mexico as Claudia Sheinbaum becomes the country's first elected female president. The country's official electoral authorities said preliminary results showed Ms. Sheinbaum winning between 58% and 60% of the vote in Sunday's election, 30 percentage points ahead of rival businesswoman Xochitl Galvez. It's all happening fast as outgoing President Andrés López Obrador congratulated her on a social media post which partly reads, "With all my affection and respect, I congratulate Claudia Sheinbaum, who came out victorious with an ample margin. She will be the first female president of Mexico in 200 years. And during a speech, the 61-year-old former mayor of Mexico City promised not to fail the country. She says her government will be honest without nepotism, impunity and corruption. Ms. Galvez, who has conceded defeat, says her win is a historical milestone that the country will have its first female president, wishing Sheinbaum the strength to solve the great problem of the people. Claudia Sheinbaum will be inaugurated in a ceremony on October 1st. More on Mexico's first female president-elect. 61-year-old Claudia Sheinbaum is no novice in Mexico's politics. She's a member of the left-wing political party Morena. She also served as head of government of Mexico City, a position equivalent to that of a state governor from 2018 to 2023. From 2000 to 2006, Sheinbaum served as Secretary of the Government, Secretary of Environment, under future President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. During his tenure as head of government, Sheinbaum served as delegational chief of the Tlapan borough from 2015 to 2017 and was elected head of government in the 2018 election, where she ran a campaign that emphasized curbing crime and enforcing zoning laws. A scientist by profession, Sheinbaum received her PhD in energy engineering from the National Autonomous University of Mexico, UNAM. As an academic, she has authored over 100 articles and 2 books on energy, the environment, and sustainable development. Sheinbaum contributed to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and in 2018 was listed as one of BBC's 100 women. On June 12, 2023, Sheinbaum resigned from her position as head of government of Mexico City to seek Morena's presidential nomination in the 2024 election. On September 6, she secured the party's nomination over her nearest rival, former Foreign Secretary Marcelo Ebrard. After she assumes office, she will be the first female president of Mexico and first person from a Jewish background to be elected president of Mexico. Celia Mendoza is with the VOA Spanish service in Mexico City. She joins us now. Celia, great to see you. I suppose that Mexico City, which used to be Sheinbaum's constituency, must be overjoyed by her win. Describe to us how people feel and their reaction to her victory.
Truly, they are happy to have the first female president in the country, but also to have been able to participate in the largest elections held ever in this country. Over 20,000 positions were being up for grabs. Also, over 600 positions in the legislature. And that is actually a positive for her and shows how strong her campaign was, because now she's going to have the majority of the Congress representing Morena, her party. She actually used to serve in the building behind me, and now she's moving across the street to the National Palace as of October 1st. Important to note, this is a historic center where she congregated thousands of people last Wednesday for her closure campaign. And again, last night, they were here until 2 in the morning with mariachi music, fireworks. And they were not just happy because she won, but because they're making history. Everything that you have mentioned is something that Mexicans repeat, but the representation of a female was something that they were looking forward. Even if it wasn't Ms. Sheinbaum, Ms. Xochitl Galvez provided the hope for people to have the first women leading this country, known for its macho culture.
Right, and that is historic, as you say, Celia. She's the first female president in Mexico's 203-year history. How difficult has it been for female participation in the country's politics?
Actually, we have seen a change in the makeup of politics, and this was the last step to get to the pinnacle. Over the past few years, we have seen an increase in the number of females in Congress, local positions, mayors. Right now, Mexico, the lead person at the Supreme Court is a female. The lead person in the National Bank is a woman. So we have seen that they are made the strides, but we have to go back in history, and they had a really difficult time to gain rights to be able to vote, to gain the rights to participate in political life. And it has fast-tracked over the past few years. As the country has expanded, women has been more influential beyond the household, and opportunities have opened up, especially in private sector, that eventually moved into the public sector. And that's one of the examples with the opposition candidate, Ms. Galvez, who used to be a tech entrepreneur and became a U.S. senator, and Ms. Sheinbaum, as you mentioned, she is a very successful scientist, many books and publications. Also, she got a Nobel Prize with a group of people that she worked with. So she is a very smart woman who is coming now to represent after a political career that has been followed by the current president of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who today, in his morning meeting with the press, said that he was very proud to have led the way for a first female president to be in office.
Yes, and he is her mentor as well, isn't he? I mean, President Obrador, he didn't say much, initially at her win, except congratulating her on her win, and then saying that he was supportive of her during the Was he as supportive, beg your pardon, of her during the campaigns, knowing how important this polls on Sunday would be, not just for Sheinbaum, but also for Mexico?
Definitely, he has been a very vocal supporter of Ms. Sheinbaum. He had used all his presence and resources to support her. He started her campaign, and also he had been, as you mentioned, a mentor, starting with when he was in that time, it used to be the head of the state of the Mexico City. It changed, and now is the mayor of the Mexico City. But she actually is following his path. The same way that he became the lead of this city and then the country, she's doing it, and he is being right by her side, as well as that she has supported him on his political career and has defended him in the past. So we are expecting now a continuation of that government. We know that she talked about the 4T, which is the name of the movement, the fourth transformation, and she is compromised, as she mentioned, to continue what he's not able to continue, as Mexico does not have re-election, and she will have 6 years to do her own presidency, continuing most of his policies. But we will have to see if anything changes as time goes by.
Now, I know Sheinbaum considers herself a Mexican through and through, but her name actually reflects her indigenous history, doesn't it? Because Sheinbaum was born to a Jewish family in Mexico. Her grandparents escaped the Holocaust. She even celebrated the Jewish holiday at her grandparents' homes. How do supporters hope that she would uphold Mexican values that when she already has, such a background?
Yeah, especially in a country that is extremely Catholic. So Guadalupe, the Virgin of Guadalupe, is one of the main icons and movements of this country. So Ms. Sheinbaum has been able to connect and in a way, marry the both cultures, the Catholicism with her background as a Jewish woman. One of the things that is important to highlight is she's not very public about being a practicing Jewish, and we don't know if that is because she is not or because she rather just keep it private. But so far, the subject of her being a Jewish person, it has not been as a very determinant factor within the campaign. She's been criticized on occasion for using the image of the Virgen de Guadalupe, the Guadalupe Virgin, and some of her clothing and things like that. But as you mentioned, her opposition, the late Ms. Sachi Galvez, is being criticized for what her detractors say is an overuse of her indigenous background, as she is from Hidalgo and has indigenous background. So both of the women in this election had been the target of questions about their background. But in the middle of all of this, we have seen a more open Mexico. And also we have to just remind the audience, Mexico for the first time has more females than males in the country. Over 51% of the population are female and around 50% or 49% are men. So we're talking about that things are changing also because the composition of the country is changing, and women are more, and what we have heard from people, are more open to give it a chance to people that are different because of their own experience as females.
And that's a really interesting fact, Cecilia. Thanks for pointing that out. More female than male. And I imagine, that Sheinbaum's background as a Jewish person could also influence Mexico's position on the Israel-Hamas war. I mean, President Obrador had requested to join South Africa's case, accusing the Israeli government of committing genocide in Gaza. How do people think that she would, her own thoughts and her values would reflect going forward on Mexico's position on the war?
That is a great question, and one that we had been looking to closely. We understand that she is with López Obrador in this subject, even though she is a female of Jewish background and has a family. And as you mentioned, she has celebrated her heritage and part of the religious celebrations. She has been critical of the actions of Benjamin Netanyahu. She has defended the people of Palestine and what has happened in Gaza, and it's expected that she continues the same policies that the government of López Obrador has highlighted during the conflict since it started in October 7. And as far as we know, she will not change course on that matter in particular. She has always been very vocal about the importance of protecting those that are in a less value or an opportunity position. And what is happening in Gaza, she has mentioned in the past, that is not an equal fight that is being held in the territory in Gaza.
Just before you go, Celia, I wanted to ask, because Mexico and the United States are in the same Northern American region, and it does seem like Mexico has gotten ahead of the U.S. when it comes to electing a female leader. Let's talk about the relationship between the two countries now that Mexico is expecting, a female president.
We just got a statement from President Biden, who congratulated her in her historic win, but also opened up again the invitation to keep an open and partnership that would last for a long time, as has been a tradition between the two countries. We have to remember that the President of the United States had made a priority to make one of the largest commercial partners to Mexico, because they want to try to eliminate the nexus with China, especially after the coronavirus. So we have seen that economically it's important. Mexico has a huge economy and now is partnering with the United States. But one of the subjects that is in question is who is going to be the president of the United States in November, because that's going to determine the possibility of the relationships. We understand that the relationships will continue as is, at least for now, but the subjects that will be the focus of that will be the security, the fight against fentanyl, the drug cartels, and as well try to figure out how to get a hold of the migration crisis, in which Mexico has been a great partner, first to the Trump administration and then to the Biden administration. And that might be something that they want to talk again. In 2026, they're going to have to negotiate the TEMEC agreement, which has to do specifically with Mexico, Canada, and the United States. Is a commercial agreement that is very important for the three countries, and she will be leading that group of people that will be participating on those talks. And who is in the White House will make a difference. We know that Canada usually maintains a similar position unless it's a big change, but the bilateral relationships are once very important for each side of the border. As things have seen, also Mexico has seen a slowdown in their economy growth, and that is something that is important for her to take a hold, and that will definitely be something that the United States could help with more business and investments as they keep working together.
You know, Celia, as you was talking, I remember that, the U.S. and Mexico had discussed issues of immigration, which have been important to both sides. Some other South American countries or North American countries using Mexico as a route into the United States, crossing, that river into the U.S. Where does Sheinbaum stand on immigration to the United States, and what is she willing to do about it?
As far as we understand, she's going to continue the policies of López Obrador. And we have to see López Obrador, even though he is a man that has leaned left in his policies, he was able to work really well with former President Donald Trump, establishing agreements and trying to get to a point in which they are able to control the migration. So far, we have seen that Mexico agree to start moving Venezuelans in particular from the southern border of the United States to the southern border of Mexico in Chiapas. They keep giving asylum claims, and that Mexico has open their system to try to support them. So we know that that might be something that she is going to continue. However, she has not expressed if it's something more that she's planning to do, or how she specifically, beyond what the government already has established, she's going to control the migration. As you mentioned, it's not only the Latin American and Haitians that are coming through Mexico, but it's also Asians that we have seen making their trek from their country to the Mexico and the United States. And at one point, they also had to face the surge of African migrants coming through this area and making it to the United States. As far as we understand, it is a plead for those border towns, and she will have to face it. We'll have more answers probably after November.
Indeed. Celia, thank you so much. We appreciate the view of Mexico City that you have given us while reporting. Thanks again for joining us on the program.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to the program, and staying with elections, but checking in on South Africa, where the ruling African National Congress will be needing to form a coalition government to remain in power. Elections conducted on Wednesday last week revealed the party was only able to secure 159 seats of the 400 in parliament. Voters slashed support for the ANC to 40.2%, down from 57.5% in the 2019 parliamentary vote. The main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, had 21.6%, and Mkhonto Wesizwe, a new party led by former President and ANC leader Jacob Zuma, managed to grab 14.7%, pulling away votes from the ANC. It was the first time it's happened in 30 years. The DA remains the second largest party in Parliament with 87 seats, and it said it's open to talks of a coalition. But it opposes two of the ANC's key priorities, its black empowerment policies, which aim to giving black people a stake in the economy following the exclusion during the racist and apartheid era, and the National Health Insurance Bill, which promises universal health care for all. On Sunday, President Cyril Ramaphosa called on the country's political parties to work together for the good of the country.
We want to thank the staff and leadership of the Independent Electoral Commission, who have worked tirelessly to ensure the success of these elections, often under very trying and difficult conditions. We will always have different views. We will always have problems that we will raise. What our people expect of all of us is to work together to find solutions in a peaceful manner in accordance with our laws.
And after months of preparation, the Independent Electoral Commission in South Africa provided its final update informing South Africans of the official numbers of the May 29th election. This was despite numerous disputes over election process discrepancies and calls to delay the announcement. The IEC went ahead and released the final tally. South Africa's ruling ANC is now searching for allies to help form a new government after losing its 3 decades-old absolute majority in a watershed election. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Samosa, has more.
A room full of worry, but also a room full of excitement for some, as political party leaders stand at the forefront, embodying the hopes and ambitions of their supporters. In contrast, the air is thick with tension and concern for others. Nervous glazes and hushed conversations reveal the uncertainty about what lies ahead as coalition talks and negotiations intensify behind closed doors. Chief Electoral Officer Saima Mabolo declared the elections free and fair.
Indeed, this was a theater of openness. As has been the case in the past 30 years, our democracy has spoken.
The future is uncertain. What happens next remains a question mark as parties strategize and maneuver for power. Regarding the best coalition scenarios for South Africa, political analyst Lukhona Mguni had this to say.
Very difficult to say because, political parties have to make two calculations. Which coalition is in the best interest for the country, but which coalition is also in the best interest for them as political parties. I think in so far as what is in the best interest of the country, if you think about the press briefing that the former President Jacob Zuma had last night here in this venue, where effectively Mkhonto Wesizwe party is disputing the entire election.
Meanwhile, political analyst Sanusha Naidu says it's difficult to determine which political party would be the best fit for South Africa.
I think that's the million-dollar bet right now. We don't know which one. I think, at this point in time, we don't have legislation that kind of defines what a coalition strategy or framework should look like. But at the same time, we're leaving it up to these political parties who have been in this kind of very, very competitive and combatant relationship. And I feel that somehow gets caught up more than what it is. I hope that sanity prevails, maturity prevails, and I hope they think of South Africans who voted and stood in the long queues as opposed to what their vested interests are.
The African National Congress is seeking a coalition partner The EFF has stated that it can work with the ANC under 3 conditions: the resignation of President Cyril Ramaphosa, control of Finance Department portfolio, and the position of Speaker of the National Assembly. Meanwhile, for now, the Democratic Alliance aligns with the multi-party charter. It's clear that South Africa's political landscape is set for a significant change. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
More politics was talked about and discussed by my colleague Layo Olarinde with political analyst Professor Nsikelelo Breakfast.
Well, first of all, one-party dominance is a thing of the past, and the hegemony of the ruling party has been dealt with a blow in a big way, and that has created a scope for negotiations. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, as it stands, it makes a provision that political parties have 14 days to constitute government. So that is about 2 weeks. The challenge is that the founding fathers and mothers of our democracy, I think when they formulated the Constitution, it never crossed their minds that the ANC at some point will be out of power because of the time frame that the Constitution provides for, which is very short. Because when you draw from international best practices, like for instance, if you look at countries like Germany, France, Norway, the list is endless. They normally have about 3 months or more than that to start with the negotiations. So that's the challenge that we have at the moment. But the other challenge is that coalitions in South Africa at local government level have been unstable and unworkable, largely because we don't have a framework to guide them. So I think we need to have a legislation that will make political parties to abide by the decisions that are made by other partners, so that we can have stability. Because we've seen of late that these coalition arrangements, they tend to scare, investors, because, investors normally, they look for political stability.
Yes, indeed, Professor. You mentioned that 14 days is what they have right now, and that's a short time frame. So how difficult do you think the journey ahead in terms of getting a coalition government is?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult because there's a tendency to see negotiations as a win-lose situation as opposed to a win-win situation. Sometimes coalition partners or people who are negotiating for a coalition arrangement, they have a winner-takes-all mentality of a zero-sum game, as opposed to having a win-win situation, making sure that the country goes forward and so on. But South Africa doesn't have a long-standing history, in my opinion, of coalition arrangements, because the first coalition arrangement that rose to prominence was in 1924 between the National Party and the PAC government, and then the second one was in 1933. And then after that, the National Party, as you might know, dominated the political landscape until the ANC rose to prominence, and then got affected by a downward electoral trajectory in 2016.
All right then, Professor, just before I let you go, if you were to predict, what coalition do you think would work for the South African political sphere?
That is a $1 million question. I'll tell you why. Because in the lineup, you've got 3 political parties, namely the ANC, which is sitting at 40% on the dot. And then you have the DA. You see, there are strong points and weaknesses of that possible coalition arrangement. because there is a perception, and sometimes politics is a game of perceptions, that the DA is a party that preserves white privileges. Whether that is right or wrong, that is not the issue. So if the ANC joins forces with the DA, some of its voters might feel betrayed. I mean, in general, as you might know, coalition arrangements are not a byproduct of democracy, because people don't vote for coalition arrangements, but they vote for political parties. But political parties, they join forces with other political parties without the knowledge of their voters. But there are other specificities. For instance, the ANC supports Palestine, the DA supports Israel, and I don't think there will be a compromise on that score. The other issue is that in South Africa, because of our history, the ANC has tried to level the playing field by introducing like affirmative action. The DA doesn't support that because they say they are colorblind, and that policy, sidelines some people and so on. We have also another policy to empower black people called broad based black economic empowerment. They are also critical of that. So there might be discontentment amongst black voters. There are also other policies that people might not be happy with, that the DA normally criticize. But on the other hand, if they join forces, the market forces will support them, because the DA has a slant of neoliberalism. Now, if you look at the other party, the one of Jacob Zuma, they have made a demand that they don't want the president of the ANC to be the president of the country because of a long-standing bad blood between the president of the ANC and the president of Umkhonto weSizwe, which is Jacob Zuma. I don't think there will be a compromise on that score. The possible one is the one with the EFF, because the EFF is also a breakaway of the ANC. I think that one is workable, even though there might be a backlash from the market forces.
Let's take a brief look at the weather events worldwide now, beginning in India, where more than 50 people have died over the past 3 days as temperatures climbed to up to 50 degrees Celsius. A major heat-related deaths were reported in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh and Odisha over the weekend. India's National Center for Disease Control described the heat strokes as life-threatening condition with a mortality rate of 40 to 64%. The Federal Health Ministry says there have been at least 56 confirmed heat stroke deaths from March 1st to May 30. Many of the deaths come as the country votes in the last phase of the general elections, with results set to be announced on Tuesday. In neighboring Sri Lanka, at least 7 people have died after flooding and landslides. The country's disaster management center said the disaster was triggered by monsoon rains. Schools have been ordered to remain closed following the incident. There's also been power cuts in several areas of the country. Authorities indicated the minor flood risk is now increasing to a major one. Landslide warnings have been issued in 9 districts. While the government has mobilized the military to provide relief materials to those affected, people have been urged to pay attention to emergency announcements from authorities. Away from the weather, China has accused the United Kingdom's Secret Intelligence Service, MI6, of conscripting Chinese state employees as spies. China's Ministry of State Security says MI6 operatives turned a Chinese man identified as Wang and his wife, surnamed Zhu, against Beijing. Both worked in core confidential departments in a Chinese state agency. The ministry alleged that MI6 started cultivating Mr. Wang when he went to the UK for his studies in 2015 under a Sino-British exchange program. According to the ministry, the operatives took special care of him in the UK, such as by inviting him to dinners and tours to better understand his interests and weaknesses. There's also been no response from the UK authorities on the matter. It comes just over a month after the UK charged 2 men with spying for China. UK police have accused them of giving articles, notes, documents, or information to a foreign state, while China has called the allegations malicious slander. Earlier this month, a former Royal Marine charged with assisting the Hong Kong Intelligence Service was found dead. Beijing and several Western countries have increasingly been trading accusations of espionage. In another development, North Korea says it will stop sending trash-filled balloons to South Korea after Seoul reported hundreds more airborne waste deliveries floating across the border. North Korea's Vice Defense Minister Kim Kang-il said the country will temporarily halt dropping trash over the border after claiming to have sent a total of 15 tons of trash to its neighbor. Kim said the balloons were a strictly responsive act to South Korea's years-long practice of sending balloons with anti-North Korea leaflets the other way. A South Korean official pledged his country will take unendurable measures against North Korea for sending more trash balloons this weekend, which will be specified in the coming days. The official from the presidential office added that the government will not rule out the issue of resuming plain loudspeakers that used to blast propaganda across the demilitarized zone but have been turned off since a military agreement was signed in 2018. Israel says it's accepted U.S. President Joe Biden's Gaza ceasefire proposal, but believes a framework deal is in need of much more work. This was disclosed by Chief Foreign Policy Advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Ophir Falk. It comes as Mr. Biden unveiled a 3-part ceasefire plan last week. The first phase would see an increase in humanitarian aid as well as the return of some hostages held by Hamas. The second phase would see the cessation of hostilities permanently in exchange for all remaining living hostages held by Hamas, while the third phase will be the start of a major reconstruction plan in Gaza and the return of the remains of dead hostages to their families. Meanwhile, Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong urged all parties to agree to terms of the ceasefire proposal by the US. The attack on Rafah has drawn more international attention, with the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, saying that all 36 of its shelters in the Rafah area are empty after residents were forced to flee. Another 1.7 million people are estimated to be displaced in Khan Yunis and in parts of central Gaza. But the US is confident Israel is open to a ceasefire deal on Gaza.
Don't want to see a major ground operation. We haven't seen that.
The U.S. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby told ABC News on Sunday the U.S. has every expectation that Israel would say yes to the proposed ceasefire deal if Hamas accepts. He says the U.S. is waiting for an official response from Hamas and that the U.S. hopes that both sides agree to start the first phase of the plan as soon as possible. During the initial 6-week pause in the fighting, according to Kirby, the two sides will sit down and try to negotiate what Phase 2 could look like and when that could begin. U.S. President Joe Biden had said last week the second phase of the plan would see all remaining living hostages returned, including male soldiers. The ceasefire will then become the cessation of hostilities permanently. On Saturday, however, 2 far-right Israeli ministers threatened to quit and collapse the country's governing coalition if Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agreed to the deal. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich and National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said they were opposed to striking any deal before Hamas was destroyed. Netanyahu, on his part, has insisted there will be no ceasefire until Hamas's military and governing capabilities are destroyed and all hostages are released. Well, thousands of people took to the streets in New York City on Sunday to demand the release of Hamas hostages. The parade, dubbed Israel Day on 5th, saw participants marching both the Israeli and American flags. They also chanted slogans and held banners reading, "Bring them home now." According to organizers, around 60,000 people joined the parade. The New York Police Department were also heavily deployed to monitor the parade. Organized by Jewish Community Relations Council of New York, the 59th edition of the parade was held on the 5th Avenue in Manhattan. Unlike previous editions, which were filled with a lively atmosphere, this year's Celebrate Israel event focused on civilian suffering and those hostages remaining in Hamas captivity. Over in the Netherlands, hundreds of pro-Palestine protesters rallied to demand the Dutch government cut ties with Israel. They waved Palestinian flags and carried huge banners calling for an end to genocide. According to some protesters, so many red lines are being crossed already. Others call for sanctions on Israel, saying the war is unacceptable.
Our government should stop supporting another government killing so many innocent people. So they have to make a statement, and they don't do it at this time. So I think they need to choose for sanctions or other ways to make clear that this is unacceptable.
You cannot go on supporting genocide. This is the first genocide in my life. That was announced, that is reported on television, and that is getting money from all European Union. This treaty with Israel, so-called based on shared values. In my value, genocide is not. So EU cut all ties with the genocider.
The Dutch government, as well as Joe Biden, said there's a red line in Rafah. If Israel would cross that, then there may be sanctions. Now, Israel has crossed that. Israel, even before Rafah, there are tens of thousands of people dead. The occupation continues. People on the West Bank are also terrorized. There are so many red lines being crossed already. They spoke about this particular red line in Rafah still being crossed and still no sanctions. Israel is an ally of the West. It has an important role in a very oil-rich region. We say there need to be sanctions now. The ties need to be cut. All the humanitarian aid needs to go to Gaza right now. Borders need to go open for refugees to go in and out.
UN humanitarians have warned that far too little aid is reaching people in Gaza to the extent that children are now starving. Alerts comes from the World Health Organization after finding that more than 4 in 5 children did not eat for a whole day at least once in the 3 days ahead of a food insecurity survey.
The 95% of children aged 6 to 23 months, so that's basically the under 5s, are eating 2 or less different food groups per day. But the thing that I found most shocking was 85% of children did not eat for a whole day, at least once in the 3 days before the survey. This was a snapshot survey. They went around and asked, and these are children under 5 who are not getting food all day, and that was in the last 3 days before the survey. So you ask, are the supplies getting through? No. Children are starving.
We continue to insist that Israeli authorities' obligation under the law to facilitate delivery of aid does not stop at the border. It does not stop when you drop off just a few meters across the border and then drive away, and then leave it to humanitarians to drive through active combat zones, which they cannot do, to pick it up. So, to answer your question, no, the aid that is getting in is not getting to the people. I would say they are certainly not getting the amount that they desperately need to prevent a famine, to prevent all kind of horrors that we see. It's very, very little that is going around, at the moment. As you know, it's not a UN operation per se, but of course we have also said that any and all ways of getting aid in is welcome. So when that modality is currently not working, that's of course bad news. That goes without saying. It was never, I think, intended, and it was never realistic to be a major or the major pipeline of aid in. It would have been an addition, and we keep emphasizing that the only way to get aid in at scale and at speed is through land crossings, and that's where we have these problems, and we need more of these land crossings, and we need them open, and we need them safe for us to pick up the aid when it's dropped off.
And it appears nationals from other countries except Israelis will be able to enter the Maldives because of the ongoing war in Gaza. The Indian Ocean island nation is known for being a luxury travel destination, and President Mohammed Muizzu had previously condemned Israel over its recent strike on Rafah in southern Gaza, which led to the deaths of at least 45 people. The Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in response to the action, advised Israeli citizens to avoid traveling to the country and for any Israeli citizens currently in the Maldives to leave, since if they fall into distress for any reason, it will be difficult for us to help. Away from the war in Gaza, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has discovered a new ally in Manila President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. following his participation in the high-level peace summit later this month, describing it as a very strong signal towards achieving peace in the country. In the first in-person meeting in Manila, Zelensky also thanked President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. for his country's clear position on Russia's occupation of the territories, while the Philippine leader assured him of his continued support. It's not immediately clear if President Marcos would attend the summit or if he would send an envoy.
We are very honored that you found the time to pass by the Philippines. I know that the crisis in your country has occupied all of your attention and all of your time, and it is a great pleasure to meet with you to discuss some of the issues that are common to our two countries, and hopefully find ways forward for both of us together. And but once again, I wish it were under better circumstances, but I am happy that you are able to come and visit with us, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Your team, we are very happy to be first time in the Philippines. I'm sure not last. Thank you for this invitation, and we are very thankful to be in your country, and which supports Ukraine, our territorial integrity and sovereignty. Thank you so much for your big word and clear position about us, about this Russian occupation of our territories, and thank you on your support on the in UN nations with your resolutions. Mr. President, I'm happy to hear today from you that you participate our peace steps to the peace. That's real thing. What really want our people, just bring peace to our homes. Yes, and thank you for participation of Peace Summit. That's very strong signal. Like I said, we have for today more than 100 countries. I think it will be maybe not the last again, but the first very strong step on the way to peace.
As we're winding down on the world today, South Korea's renowned Waterbomb festival made a splash flashy debut in Hong Kong on Sunday, ushering in a wave of cool relief as festival goers embrace the refreshing start to the summer season. We'll see pictures in a moment. Oh, there we are. Hundreds of attendees gathering in front of the brightly illuminated stage as water cannons unleash cool sprays onto the crowd. The festival included water gun fights, water bombs, a photo zone, as well as musical performances from both Korean bands and local artists. And this year, Korea's renowned Waterbomb Festival has been making waves on a global scale, having started its world tour in Xiamen on May 18th to 19th. After a thrilling event in Hong Kong, the festival is scheduled to bring its excitement to Dubai on June 7th all the way to the 8th. We did promise you more on Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko's favorite pastime. He was seen recently relaxing from work by engaging in physical labor in Minsk, the capital. The head of state was seen chopping wood on a lawn with an impressive pile of completed work next to him. I believe he was the one who chopped all of those pieces. While processing a mountain of logs still in front of him, Lukashenko gave credit to his tool of choice, but not without a wink. Nice axe, he said, but there's still room for improvement, according to the president.
Топор, но есть над чем работать.
Maybe a workout routine, not just relaxing feet, I would say. Thanks for watching The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani.